pleasure for me to invite Helen Matthews, who's the CEO of the Cure Parkinson Trust. Helen has been working with us and supporting our work through the Trust for some years now. So we're particularly grateful to her to come here. It's on a Sunday afternoon as well. And you're going to talk to us about fast-tracking new treatments.
I think I'm the second one down. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. It's really good to be here. We've been supporting the Rhapsody study quietly and discreetly for a number of years, trying to encourage people to take part, because for us, identifying people who have got a GBA mutation is massively important for us to being able to run clinical trials in a very targeted way. I'm going to tell you a bit about the charity because it then explains why we might want to be running trials in this way. So let's go that way. Oh, no, that clearly didn't work. So at the up arrow, you said? Down arrow. Let's go that way. Yeah. Okay, there we go. It was a down arrow, not an up arrow. So the Cure Parkinson's Trust came into being in 2005, and we were set up by 4 people who were living with Parkinson's at the time. At this stage, pharmaceutical companies were leaving Parkinson's research like it was going out of fashion. Glaxo had left, all sorts of other ones, Orion, and it meant that there was very little investment to help keep the research alive in Parkinson's. It was also a time when a number of clinical trials had failed, and I think that people had lost confidence in trying to move forward to a cure. But our co-founders, including Tom Isaacs, who is pictured at the top, believed that a cure for Parkinson's needed to be researched and that actually it really would be possible with the right effort behind the research. Just to remind you on the statistics in Parkinson's, a lifetime chance of developing Parkinson's is 1 in every 37. There are 145,000 people living with Parkinson's in the UK currently, and we estimate that's about 10 million worldwide. It's a global problem. The Cure Parkinson's Trust only funds research that slows down the disease, stops it, or reverses it. We're not interested in funding research that would manage symptomatic treatments. There's a huge amount of work that's already been done in that area. This is our niche. We want to change the disease and change it for good. So in 2012, we came up with an idea of looking at drugs that have been used to treat other diseases to see whether there would be interest and application and whether they could have relevance in treating Parkinson's. So we set up something called the Link Clinical Trials Programme. It's a fascinating process. Each year, our Director of Research will horizon scan all the drugs that are out there. We'll be looking at the biochemical reasons as why they might be relevant in Parkinson's. So he'll look at, a couple of hundred every year. He will then whittle that list down. He will then develop dossiers, detailed analytical dossiers on each of those drugs with a very compelling story as to why they might be relevant in Parkinson's. Those dossiers are then evaluated by a committee of worldwide experts in Parkinson's, and those are then prioritised as to which should move forward to clinical trial now. So to date, we have, since 2012, we've analysed over 2,000 drugs. We've created over 150 dossiers, of which 40 have actually been prioritised by the committee, and around about 20 are moving towards clinical trial or are in clinical trial now, which is quite a lot of activity in a few short years. So when Stephen was saying that when he first came here, he had a vision that he wanted to be involved in a clinical trial for Parkinson's that could be developing a new potential therapy, that was what, 5 years ago? 7 years ago. But it's a similar sort of time frame to this programme. And it's really encouraging to see that there is no stone is being left unturned in our effort to try and find these new treatments. Critically, actually, those meetings involve funders, so the National Institutes of Health in America will come to these meetings, as well as other charities, so the Michael J. Fox Foundation, Parkinson's UK come to these meetings. Clearly, we're there, but also there's a new organisation in the States called the Silverstein Foundation, which only funds research into GBA treatments. So again, you can see that there is this energy to bring brilliant research, brilliant ideas, and funders into the same room to see which of these treatments should move forward. Let's go that way. There we go. And so since we started, we have created a drug trial using a drug called exenatide. Now, we funded the very first study of that back in 2009, 2010. That went on to a larger placebo-controlled trial, and it's now moving into a phase 3, which will start in the autumn. That is going to involve about 200 people. It's going to be placebo-controlled, so half will receive a dummy drug and half will receive the active treatment. And what we're trying to see is whether this drug will have the potential to slow down the progression by enabling people to stay as they are, whereas we expect that the placebo group would continue to decline. So what we want to try and see is clear water between the two groups. So if the exenatide treatment group remains steady, that would be an incredibly encouraging signal. However, we've got to do the trial to find out what's happening. The second one on the list here, ambroxol. This is a study that's been led by Professor Shapiro and Stephen here. And actually, interestingly, this involved a cohort of people who have GBA Parkinsons. And so this for us was the first time that we'd had a dedicated group of people that had a genetic mutation and involved them in a clinical trial in this way. So those two are incredibly encouraging stories. With the ambroxol story, we're expecting to see some results imminently, I hope, Tony. And in fact, we've got a meeting tomorrow to look at where we go next with this story, because we think it's an important one and we want to know what we should be doing and how we can be supporting you. And if that does move forward, then clearly Rhapsody would be the perfect vehicle for helping us find candidates to take part in this next trial. Currently, as I said, we've got 17 trials in progress. We've also expanded the programme to include a number of centres in Australia. So there are going to be 4 trials that are going to be getting underway in Australia, and that's actually been funded by the Australian government, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But there's a huge amount more that we still need to do. It's also worth saying that we do also fund regenerative research, and also looking at growth factors. So this is an overview of the programme. The ones in purple, you can see the studies have been completed. EPI-589, that's another interesting one that was run at UCL in London. And actually also that's been run in America and Germany and in other centres. But again, it was involving a cohort of people with genetic forms of Parkinson's. Ambroxol we've touched on, Bydureon exenatide we've touched on, and that moving forward to the phase 3. Simvastatin, Professor Shapiro talked about the alpha-synuclein, which is this big sticky protein that is a feature of Parkinson's. Simvastatin, we think the evidence is that it's helping to reduce that build-up of that sticky protein. And statins are so widely used, it's a very sensible thing to try it in people with Parkinson's, see if we can get a signal. And actually, I think that's one you're also involved in, Stephen, being in Plymouth now, so because that's where it's being headquartered out of. Deferriprone reduces the build-up of iron in the brain, and those studies are happening across Europe. Liraglutide is a parallel drug, as is lixisenatide to Bydureon. And these are GLP-1s. They're used to treat type 2 diabetes, and they're injectables. UDCA, that trial's getting underway in Sheffield, which is also to improve the energy in the cells. Nilotinib, a cancer drug. There's a good biochemical reason why that might be relevant in Parkinson's, but we're testing that in America at the moment. And then you'll see here that there are a number of other trials that are due to start a little bit later this year. So it gives you an overview of a sense of what we're trying to do, and the fact that we really are looking at all sorts of targets, and we are needing all sorts of people to take part in that research. And some of those are going to need genetic cohorts of people to take part in those studies going forward. So it gives you a sense of why Rhapsody is so important, because if we are developing treatments, or particularly developing trials, and being able to then match those trials to the group of people who those trials are going to be right for, then that is a real step forward. And it means that we can be developing treatments faster and more effectively with a clearer signal. And the final thing I wanted to just talk about is Parkinson's movement. Parkinson's movement is led by people with Parkinson's at the Cure Parkinsons Trust, and this is where where Rhapsody sits right in the middle of all of that, and that's where we recruit people to it. And it's for us, it's about discussing research, it's about providing opportunities for people to take part, and it's also about peer-to-peer communication. It had a bit of a colour bomb, so that's why it's a little bit of a colourful site, so no corporate stuff there at all. Anyway, that's enough from me. I have finished on time, as I said I would, but thank you so much.